Do you also feel like you no longer perform as well as you used to? Do you also know that it's been a long time you haven't learned something new, and it's no longer as easy as it used to be? When we're younger, our minds are constantly under the pressure of learning and performing well in school and tests. This might sound surprising, but this means we have better cognitive abilities. But when we grow older and turn into adults, learning and thinking plateau. Or at least this is the case for a lot of people. And then it declines after the age 30 or 40. People start to perform worse in tests of cognitive abilities, such as processing speed, the rate at which someone does a mental task. The slide becomes steeper after 60 years of age, but the thing is, it doesn't really need to plummet. The good news is we can do something about it and stay mentally sharp, at least to some extent. Let's learn how. Hey friends, welcome back to Nifty Bytes. I'm Navid and here's all about latest articles and cutting-edge discoveries. Today we're talking about how to stay mentally sharp as we age. Let me tell you about Bob and Jane. Bob and Jane knew nothing about beekeeping. They scoured books, blogs, and research articles. They joined online and community groups and watched YouTube videos. They shadowed master beekeepers. They created their own syllabus for what they needed to learn and assigned themselves homework. Eventually, they formed their own beekeeping groups to help others set up their colonies. And now they're expert beekeepers, tending 6 colonies. Should we be surprised that Bob and Jane aren't in their 20s or 30s, but rather in their late 50s? Or maybe even by now in their early 60s? We shouldn't, to be honest. Bob and Jane reflect the experience of others. Late to the Ball, for example, by Gerald Marzorati, describes how he learned to play tennis in his 50s. Old in Art School by Neil Painter describes how she received a bachelor's and master's in painting after retiring from Princeton as a history professor. Irvin Olsen adapted a changing photographic technology over 9 decades and was featured in Smithsonian Magazine for developing cutting-edge techniques when he was 98 years old. These experiences should be celebrated, but why do they seem extraordinary? Consider that 50% of adults over age 40 in a 2017 survey self-reported that they don't learn new information every week. That includes Googling for new information. When it comes to older adults, changes in learning and cognitive abilities are often ascribed to normal aging. But what if it represents something more like the summer slide that school children experience? Every year, teachers and parents observe how summer vacations lead the children's academic progress to backslide. During the COVID pandemic, many students missed the equivalent of at least 7 to 10 weeks of in-person learning because of remote or reduced schooling. Interrupted learning does not affect children only. After formal education and job trainings end, a lot of adults experience years, if not decades, of reduced or non-existing learning opportunities. The question is no longer whether we should pursue learning as adults, but how society can optimize the environment to maximize opportunities. Educators and scientists know quite a bit about how to do this for children and adolescents, and this can be somehow adapted for adults. The ability to live independently needs periodic upgrade because of the changes in our environment, especially when it comes to technological advancements. Cell phone providers are disconnecting 3G networks, and healthcare providers are moving toward online-only access to patients' medical records. This means learning how to use a smartphone or new online portals. And if people avoid learning these skills themselves, they're gonna stay dependent, and they kinda have to ask others to do stuff for them. As we age, it's very common for us to lose trust in our mental acuity, and instead, rely increasingly on external aids. We shop while vigilantly checking items from a list. We check our calendar frequently and use our phones to store our friends' numbers. By doing so, we not only rob ourselves from important opportunities to actually use our mind, but we also prevent ourselves from observing small mental triumphs. Sometimes it is the avoidance of testing our abilities that prevents us from recognizing the upsides of cognitive aging. Although we all know that some changes to our mental faculties are inevitable as we age, there still are some more steps we can take to minimize their impact. You should prioritize sleep. Sleep is not only essential to our physical health, but also critical to cognitive functioning and mental well-being. Sleep isn't a time when the brain is at rest. The brain is incredibly active during sleep, and it's active in ways that are nearly impossible to create during our waking day. By prioritizing your sleep, you can take advantages from unique brain states that can aid everything from our memory to our ability to control our emotions. Exercise, especially cardiovascular exercise that increases the heart rate, gets the blood flowing and increases oxygen delivery throughout the body and brain. It turns out that the brain is a particularly greedy consumer of that oxygen. Of all the oxygen around the body, the brain consumes around 20% of it, which is more than any other organ. Extensive research has suggested that exercise can help to stave off effects of advancing age on cognitive ability, and even a single bout of exercise can convey short-term benefits. Exercise can also help us to sleep better and to feel better emotionally. The last but not least, be social. Humans are social by nature. Throughout history, our survival has been highly dependent on our ability to work together to solve problems. Extensive research has shown that adults of all ages benefit from social interactions and from feeling socially connected with others. Social isolation in older age can be a risk factor for everything from cognitive decline to mortality. This means ways of interacting that gives us a real-time and positive sense of connection to others. Think of all the nuances and uncertainties, as well as skills and aptitudes that are involved in having a conversation. You have to listen, focus, remember what's already been said, read emotions, empathize, give appropriate responses, and check your inappropriate responses. This isn't an exhaustive list, but if our goal is to stay sharp as we age, this is an important list to keep at the top of our lifestyle priorities. If you enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing, and here are some other videos to feed your hunger for knowledge. Thank you, and till next time.